This girl, Miss Alcoholic that she is, Miss Panty Dropper after 2 shots, okay? This girl, if you want a piece of Amy, give her 2 shots. She'll give it to y'all, okay? This girl campaigned against my best friend, Gulcha. In Brooklyn, she'd get a beating, but here we have a couple of other rules, so we can't break her fingers. You know what I mean?
Michele Fiore, a former Las Vegas councilwoman who lost her 2022 bid for the Nevada State Treasurer, has been unanimously appointed to a rural judgeship in Nevada despite not having a law degree. I'm Yasmin Khan with The Breakdown, and Fiore is your typical Trump-supporting political candidate. She's anti-CRT, which of course is still not being taught in schools. She wants to prevent voter fraud that has demonstrably not been happening, and she's against vaccine mandates because freedom. In other words, it doesn't take a whole lot of intellect or relevant experience to become a GOP darling these days as long as you stick to the Trump-approved script. Despite several Trump-backed candidates losing their elections in the 2022 midterms, which probably should have signaled that the GOP should move on from the Trump rhetoric, they're not. Michele Fiore was one of those losing candidates. After a failed bid for the state treasury, Fiore has been appointed unanimously over 17 other candidates to a rural county judgeship without having any relevant experience or education in the field. An election denier, who literally can't look at available data and draw a reasonable conclusion, is now a county judge. Fiore's unfitness for the position doesn't end there, though. In 2021, the FBI searched her home and subpoenaed records because of discrepancies in her campaign spending records. She later amended some of the documents, but they still aren't perfect. In 2022, she was sued by a fellow Las Vegas congresswoman who accused Fiore of breaking her finger in a physical altercation. Prior to all of this, concerns were raised about her interest in taking over the state treasury, as the IRS had filed over $1 million in tax liens against her and her business in 2014. She blamed the liens on her ex-husband. So any way you look at it, Fiore has no business filling the role that she's been appointed to, especially after losing her election to a Democrat. The state GOP in Nevada is doubling down on their support of Fiore and her ideals, essentially saddling residents with someone they didn't vote for. But the bigger problem here is that having a big personality doesn't necessarily equate to being effective in a role, especially when that someone is completely unqualified for it on paper. We know that. It's not a groundbreaking statement that I just made, but all of this shows that the GOP is not interested in having qualified people in government. They're interested in personalities like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert that will be effective at pushing a specific narrative. They want mouthpieces. Conversely, let's look at what's going on in Brazil. Newly elected President Lula da Silva has started his first term, and he's made some critical appointments. Lula grabbed headlines when he defeated the former president, right-wing extremist Jair Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro gained global notoriety for basically being the Trump of Brazil, and he garnered particularly negative attention for his maltreatment of the Amazon rainforest. He drew the ire of every climate scientist, activist, and sympathizer by mowing down tracts of forest, and for a rainforest that's often referred to as the lungs of the planet, the consequences of losing the Amazon would be widespread and dangerous. Replacing him with the much more progressive Lula was celebrated around the world as a victory, and now Lula is making good on his campaign promises by appointing people into positions who are actually qualified for those positions. Go figure, an actual meritocracy. For instance, Marina Silva has been named the next environmental minister. Silva is a well-respected environmentalist in Brazil, and she had previously filled the minister position back in 2003. At the time, she was responsible for a steep decline in deforestation rates, and now she's expected to deliver on Lula's promise of zero deforestation in the Amazon by 2030. Additional appointments that just make sense are Sonia Guajajara, an indigenous woman who's been named the Minister of Indigenous Peoples, seems fitting, and then there's Carlos Favaro, a soybean producer who's been named Agricultural Minister. Anyway, the juxtaposition of what Lula's government is attempting and what our own GOP is doing highlights what can happen when competent and conscious leaders are in charge versus what happens when greed and corruption reign. All right, that's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like and subscribe, and be sure to follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you.